For the man on the street, digitalisation typically means enhanced television. But from a service offering perspective, surely there's more to it.
Yes, digitalisation is moving from one standard to the other standard, to a different type of standard. Digitalisation also means introduction of new services like HDTV. 3D in Europe is currently one of the topics. The broadcasters are looking into it. But also digitalisation is not only moving standards, it's also a lot of investment that needs to be done on the ground. You need to roll out infrastructure. You need to educate the consumer that there are new products available. And you also have deadlines that you have to consider, because at one point the analog signals will be switched off, and the consumer needs to be aware that as from day X they cannot receive any TV programming in the way they were used to watch TV. So it's a complex story. It's not just moving from A to B and the next day, today you watch analog, tomorrow you watch digital. There's much more behind about going digital.
But that shift is happening, and the global deadline was set for 2015. Now that means Africa has a lot of catching up to do, because when you take into account that less than 10% of Africans currently have access to digital television. Now, what are the roadblocks to digitalisation in Africa at the moment?
Well, let's start with your first comment that you made. Indeed, the deadline has been set by the ITU, which is a regulator based in Geneva. If you look around the globe, a couple of countries have already managed the digital transition. Others are on their way and will manage to switch off soon. Indeed, Africa is not as advanced as other regions of the world are. There was a research done by Balancing Act in October last year, which evaluated that 30 African countries have not even started considering moving to digital. And the challenges that you have is, indeed, there are a couple of challenges. First of all, there are technological challenges. Which kind of standard do you follow? Now, I know recently the Southern African countries have decided to follow the DVB standard, the latest generation, the DVB T2, terrestrial 2 standard, how we call it. But other countries have not even considered what kind of standard they would like to follow. So you have the technological standard that you need to choose. Then you have to consider that you need to build up a terrestrial network infrastructure. And to give you an example, the main challenge of rolling out terrestrial infrastructures is mainly cost. If you take into account, I'll give you a European example. France, for example, has spent 600 million euro, which equivalent 6 billion rand, to cover 90% of the population. So they even can't cover 100% of the population, spending 600 million euros for building up a network infrastructure. So here we at SAS believe that satellite can play a very crucial role to help the African governments and countries to roll out the digitalization much faster than we have seen in other regions of the world.
Well, it means you have to partner with government and local service providers when you make inroads into those various African countries and regions. What's that mean?
Indeed, we partner. What normally happens is the governments or the countries mandate a company that is managing the digital transition. Again, a European example, in the UK, the company is called Freeview, Digital Terrestrial Offering. And we cooperate together with these guys and create, for example, an offer called FreeSat, where it is the equivalent to Freeview just on satellite, to make sure that 100% of the population can receive digital terrestrial programming. Because the biggest challenge when it comes to digitalization you have is you want to reach a maximum number of peoples at a reasonable time with reasonable cost.
Yes.
And satellite has got all these advantages because the satellite covers the whole country. Therefore, it reaches all the people immediately. And the investment is already done. The satellite is there, it's up and running. The only additional investment that you might have is you need to rent space at the satellite.
Now, you've mentioned, of course, that satellite offer great coverage in Africa, and we've seen some arrival of coastal cables as well. But how accessible is it really? And you're talking about the cost aspect. Now, that's a huge factor in Africa. What is SAS doing to bring down those costs and to make it more accessible to the typical African?
We just have launched a installer program called Elevate. We started in Eastern Africa. We're going to move this now also to Western Africa and to Southern Africa. The main purpose of Elevate is to educate and to train what we call the multipliers, the people on the ground, the installers, the retailers, your small guys that at the end of the day sell the product to the end consumer and make it available. Because we believe that the key access is distribution. You need to focus and strengthen the distribution network that you have on the ground to make sure the product is available to the end consumer. And we invest a lot in this kind of education and training programs to help and educate the people on the ground in that respect.
And from a businessman perspective, I mean, if you're a business in one of these countries, what's on offer for them?
There's huge opportunities for private and governmental enterprises, because digitalization creates new services, it creates new opportunities, new business models arise, and once you meet the various stakeholders involved and you start discussing and explaining the opportunities that digitalization brings for various parties along the value chain, they're all quite excited about these new opportunities. And this is what we do. We sit together, we explain them where the opportunities lay in the various areas, and we grow new businesses, you educate the market, and this is the way we stimulate the take-up and drive digitalization.